Welcome, everybody, to our newest Tuesday night show, 6 o'clock Central Standard Time every Tuesday night. Doug and I will be here with Scott Balby, the Director of Motorsports for Premier Lubricants. The Beer Money Pulling Team has an exciting new partnership with Premier Lubricants, and we're going to do a Tech Talk Tuesday. I have never met anybody that knows oil in and out. I think this guy puts it on his cereal in the morning, Doug, or puts it on his pancakes, and talks about lubrication and what it can do. And we're excited to offer this partnership with the Beer Money Pulling Team. If you scroll across the bottom, we do have a coupon code as well that you can work with Premier Lubricants and us. Doug is the general manager of the Beer Money Pulling Team. He's the one handling this account primarily with Scott Balby, Director of Motorsports at Premier Lubricants. Scott's having a hard time with his computer tonight, so we're trying to get him on the screen here, get this figured out. I think he's logging on right now. So, but yeah, every Tuesday night, 6 o'clock Central Standard Time, we're going to have Tech Talk with Scott Balby. We call him Scottie Too Hottie. It's his nickname we gave him. I think Hope gave it to him. And we're just talking about Premier Lubricants and, working together with Scott. There he is. That's a still photo.
But
got a nice shirt on at least. So, Doug, I mean, we're going to be handling some Sunoco products and different things like that, right?
Correct.
Yeah. Yep. So Sunoco products, racing and full line of core products, which would be your day shift stuff. I call it, like your farm, your commercial truck fleets, industrial, all that. So we carry, it's a one-stop shop, so to speak. And then we have the Champion brand still. That's going strong. That's a full lubricant line too. That's, the racing products along with their core products too, including aerosols, starting fluids and brake cleaners, all that. So, and of course, Grizzly coolers and drinkware. And then we have our G-Tech cleaning solutions and degreasers. So we have a pretty good wardrobe of products for about anything you could, need or use it for.
Scott, tell me when you want me to put the I got those nice, I can bring the website up right now. I'll put up the screen, or I can put up some of your flyers. How do you want to handle tonight's show?
Yeah, so I think the two things for tonight I'd like to go over is just the fundamentals of lubricants, basically from crude oil, how they make base oil and additives and how it's blended. And then we'll get into the $1 million question I get asked all the time is, racing oil, is it high zinc or does it have high zinc? So we'll talk about the zinc additive for a little bit, so everyone has kind of a full understanding of that and what it does.
And if anybody has any questions about oil, lubrication ideas, any questions like that, please type them in. This is just a real open forum talking about, again, our new partnership with Premier Lubricants, but more importantly, just learning about oil. And I have a lot to learn as well about all this stuff. So I'm excited to get a little bit of education every Tuesday night. So we're getting every Tuesday night, 6 o'clock. Then you'll be able to listen to this on our audio podcast as well under the Let's Grow Polling tab on later in the week on iTunes or Spotify. So I'm going to share my screen here quick. First thing that we have up is a flyer. Let's see here. Bring this up right here. Diesel engine oil versus racing oil for pulling trucks and tractors. I got that up on the screen right now, Scott. Let me do a little adjusting on my. There we go.
Yeah, so one of the big things is, and I apologize, we're having some technical with the cameras and stuff. Can everyone hear me still okay?
Yeah, you have a face for radio anyway, Bobby. Don't feel bad.
Yeah, so I apologize. I'm up in New York State right now. I made the trip up here, so I do apologize. But so one of the things, we'll go over this real quick, and then we'll go back over and talk about the crude on that. But one thing that comes up all the time is with diesel truck and tractors, a lot of pullers use a racing oil. So they'll use a synthetic blend most of the time or conventional mineral base. So when we say that, that's typically a SAE 50 or 60, typically are two, most common flavors. So, or a nitro 50, nitro 60, a lot of the competitors name it. So, but one of the things that's important is we have a high performance 1540. But when you get into the big bearing clearances and some of the bigger clearances, you lose oil pressure. So teams jump up and they use a racing oil. So one of the important things is they can get away with it, and it's not wrong. But racing oil doesn't have dispersants and detergents in there. So what happens is you get clotting, and then when you start getting clotting from soot and some of the fuel dilution, that becomes abrasive. So that's why a lot of the teams, they're doing these 1 to 4 hooks. They're doing oil changes. It's important because that when that gets abrasive, that can do some premature wear on everything internally. So, but not saying it's wrong. A lot of them do it. Sunoco offers a 2050 diesel oil. That's a CH4 spec. That's the old school, just hardcore high zinc in there. So that's a great selection for truck and tractor pulling for the diesel guys. Now, if you go to the drum, I think there's a drum of crude, Jason, one of the first slides.
Give me 1 second, Scott. Keep talking while I find that. I had your one things queued up there.
So Scottie, let's give a little history on Sunoco.
Yeah, so Sunoco's been in business for well over 100, almost 150 years. So it was Sun Oil Company. They're Ohio and Pennsylvania based. So in the 90s, they rebranded. So they turned Sun Oil Company into Sunoco. So it's basically Sun Oil Company, just shortened up. And they've been in and out of racing oils, high performance oils, back and forth for many years. So one that most people would recognize is Cam 2. They sold Cam 2 off back in 1984. And that was a whole different manufacturer. So it's not affiliated with Sunoco whatsoever. So Sunoco reintroduced the racing oil or racing and performance lubricants this May in Las Vegas at the dealer shows. So they just got back into the game this year, but they've always had their diesel oils, industrial oils, specialty oils. They never stopped doing those. So, and they're pretty predominant overseas. A lot of Sunoco goes to a lot of countries around the world, including the Caribbean.
Scott, I have that crude oil products slide up on the screen right now.
Yeah. So what's important here is, a lot of people, you hear about crude oil and on the news and a drum of crude and, gasoline's going up, it's going down, it's going all over the place. So a lot of people may or may not know, but a true drum of crude oil is 42 gallons. And then this is kind of a unique little illustration graph. Only a half gallon or 0.5 gallons out of that drum of crude is for finished lubricants. So that's engine oil, specialty oils, industrial oils. So the majority of it goes for gasoline. As you can see, the brown part of that drum goes for gasoline. So a lot of people associate a drum as 55 gallons, but a true drum of crude oil is 42 gallons. And that pie chart, so to speak, top of the drum breaks down, what components come out of that. So like your home heating oil, your diesel oils.
It says Coke. It's got Coke in there.
Yeah,
like Coca-Cola.
Yeah, no, a lot of people think that it's just a byproduct they use for chemistry and stuff. And then
the Coke is used for steel production, correct?
Yeah, they use it in a lot of industrial applications. So, but the one and I can't read that, it's small print, but I think it's above the finished lubricants or lubricants. Petroleum feedstock, that's basically additives. They use, some of that crude and they create additives or manufacture additives. So a lot of recycled base oil or oils, I should say, not base oil, but recycled oils are used to make additives for oil. So that's kind of interesting. But I think the next slide, Jason, is the truck, the base oil. So one thing that comes up all the time is we get asked about additives, but no one ever asks about base oils. So if you think about a quarter oil, 80% of that or more is base oil and the rest is additives. So anywhere from, 20 to 10% or less are additives. So, but there are 3 groups of base oil that are mineral. So on your mineral bases, there's group 1, there's group 2, and there's group 3. So if you think of a good vodka or whiskey, it's the same thing. They pull this oil out of the ground. It's crude. It goes into a distillation tower. And at the top of the tower, they start doing the process. Your group 1 base oils are at the top. They do more distillation or hydrocracking processes. and then they get better or more refined as you go down. So a group 2 is better than 1, and a group 3 is better than 2. But they all have their place in the world of lubricants. So group 1s are great in today's world for process oils, for metalworking, cutting oil, honing oil, all that stuff. So, and then your full synthetic groups are 4 and 5, and those are like the PAOs you hear, or PAG. Your group 5s are PAG or PAG, which are your high-end diester, like compressor oils and stuff like that. But your engine oils are typically, if it's synthetic blend, they're either a group 1, group 2, or group 3 blended with a group 4, and the picture kind of illustrates that. If it's a conventional mineral oil, it's just exactly that. It's just group 1 or group 2 or group 3. There's no synthetics added to it, and then the full synthetic. So the group 3 base oils of today are so good and such high technology that a lot of them are being labeled as full synthetic, especially on the industrial side. They're that good. So,
Scottie, explain. Now, I was dumb enough to think a synthetic oil is not plastic like people think. It's not a synthetic. It truly is oil. It's just in a different form. Correct?
Yeah, they use some oil in it for sure, and it's definitely man-made, which that's the most important, I guess, line you want to do. It's man-made. We'll get to a little bit more on that in a few slides down.
Okay.
And it's mostly about molecules and the structure of molecules. But anyway, so you get your base oils, and then you blend them with the additives, and that gets you your finished products that come in drums, pails, totes, bulk, whatever. So, but any questions or good on that?
No, we'll holler if anybody puts anything up. You want me to go to the next slide, Scott?
Yeah, next slide, if you don't mind. So this is a representation of the physical properties of a base oil. So when you hear people say that, there's definitely differences between oil, and a lot of people say oil is oil, but it's not. Like I said, in a quart of oil, 80+% of that is base stock. So the base stock properties are super critical for the quality or performance of the oil. So this slide kind of generally illustrates, the characteristics of a good base oil.
All right.
And then this kind of highlights what I just said, in a drum. So you have your base oil and additives. It's 70 to 85% of base oil, and then 22% additives. And then typically there's 5% of VI or viscosity index improvers, which make up the oil. So it doesn't matter what brand you use, as long as you start with a quality base oil, you're going to have, like I tell people, if you have good components and you make a chocolate chip cookie with good components or ingredients, you're going to have a good finished product or an excellent finished product. This just illustrates viscosity. Viscosity is the number one indicator of an oil. Basically, it's, they do testing temperature over time. The W in a dual grade oil, a lot of people represent that as weight, or they identify it as weight. That's simply not true. That is actually winter. So that W stands for winter, or cold cranking temperature rating. So when they test oil, it's, they'll do the first number is the cold test or cold cranking. They'll do that at, I believe it's 22 degrees Fahrenheit below zero. And then when they do the hot test, or the second number, which makes the viscosity grade, that is at 212 or 212 Fahrenheit. So, and it's based over time or flow. So that's how they measure the oil's viscosity. This just represents the functions of engine oil. I think the key things here, the most important thing is they lubricate, they cool, and they seal. Seal's kind of important because the seal portion of that, what it does or oil does, is for your piston rings. So the better that you have, sealed, obviously, less fuel dilution, things of that nature, or horsepower gains or losses based on that as well. So this slide represents the synthetic versus mineral base oil. So basically, an easy way, and I like to make it simplified because all the big chemistry terms no one remembers, including myself. But if you were to look at a synthetic oil versus a mineral based oil, synthetic oil molecules are uniform. They're all the same. So what it does, or oil does, is for your piston rings. So the better that you have mineral based oil, synthetic oil molecules are uniform. They're all the same. So what it does, or oil does, is for your piston rings. So the better that you have mineral based oil, synthetic oil molecules are uniform. They're all the same. So what it does, or oil does, is for your piston rings. So the better that you have. I lost you guys. Are you back?
Yep.
There. Sorry about that. So if you were to take the balls from a ball crawl and they were all the same size and threw them in your living room and rolled across them, you would go across them uniformly even. So that'd be like representing synthetic oil molecules. If you were to look at the mineral-based molecules, they're all different sizes or different chains. So they're the carbon and hydrogen chain. So do the same thing. Take a whole bunch of different balls, different sizes and variation, throw them in your living room, roll across. You're going to kind of, ripple across them. So that's a good kind of representation of the difference of the molecules.
That was just the second part of the slide there, Scott. Synthetic
advantages. Yeah. So synthetic oils, there's a lot of like old school guys around that, still think that synthetic oils is, snake oil are not as good. So, but synthetic oil advantages, I mean, they're so much better, not only for heat and longevity, but some of the advantages are the wear, superior wear control compared to that. Friction control, the thermal stability is a lot better with synthetic oils. Aging characteristics, that's just oil drain intervals. They last longer. You hear people say, oh, I get 7,000 miles out of my synthetic oil instead of the old school, 3,000. Film strength, and that's basically because it doesn't break down. Heat is the biggest killer of oil. Higher viscosity indexes. So that's basically from cold to hot. It's a longer window compared to mineral oil. And then detergency levels, you can get a lot of detergent in these synthetic oils, which is, good more so for passenger car motor oil because there's not a lot of detergent in racing oil. And then, the fuel economy benefits, the power output, cleaner engine surfaces, longer life. Those are all kind of the DNA of full synthetics. These are the additives in passenger car motor oil. It's just kind of a reference what's in there. I mean, there's a ton of stuff in them now. I mean, the basic stuff, antioxidants, detergents, pour point dispersants, friction modifiers. You got foam inhibitors, rust and corrosion inhibitors, dispersants, and then your viscosity index. But that's pretty much the makeup of an engine oil, not so much racing oil. Racing oil, you probably take half those additives out of there because the big difference is you don't need it. You're changing it, after a night or two or, 2, 3, 4 weeks, depending on what you're doing. But there's quite a few additives in today's oil. And if you notice too, up in the barrel on that one there, most of the oils today are group 2, or what you'll hear is a group 2 plus. So a group 2 plus is they take group 2 and group 3 and mix together. And then if it's a semi-synthetic, they mix it with group 4. So they're making these group 3s so good that they like to put a little bit in with the 2s to make them superior.
Anti-wear additives, Scott?
Yeah, so the anti-wear, can you blow that one up a little bit more, Jason?
Yep.
Yeah, so the anti-wear additives, basically what it says, they reduce wear. They form a chemical kind of surface too. And then a lot of the additives don't kick in, until there's a higher temperature, and or they come under load, then they get activated. So, but the oil still, so a lot of question comes in with the viscosity, like, oh, it doesn't flow. Well, the additives will kick in at different temperatures, but the base oil still, the oil itself, I should say, still has to flow at what it's rated for. So, and then if on the bottom there, you can see the typical additives in that. It's your zinc, your phosphorus, boron, calcium, moly, sulfur. And a lot of people question the Sunoco oils have a very high sulfur content, parts per million. So sulfur is actually a great anti-wear additive. You see sulfur like in cutting oil, and when it gets to a certain temperature, it really activates and forms that film or actually a boundary. So Sunoco's recipe, if people look at the product data sheets, they'll notice that some of their racing oils has really high parts per million of sulfur, along with zinc. And that's pretty much across the board a zinc or ZDDP package, which is kind of reference nickname zinc, is basically has those elements in there some level. They're different per brand.
Let's see here. Where was I? Right there? Yeah. Nope, I was
Nope.
not there. Anti-wear. I gotta go on a different side there. Sorry.
Should be maybe some zinc.
Yep, there. Zinc is a polar molecule. That one.
Yeah. So zinc's an interesting element. So zinc's an anti-wear element that we all kind of know from hydraulic oil. There's AW 46, 32, whatever. So it's referenced that. But what a lot of people, want like high zinc or add zinc, or they want to put zinc additives in. So if you have a good premium quality or high quality racing oil, you shouldn't have to put spiker, zinc or additives in there. What happens is the chemistry gets off, and if you're not doing lab analysis, if you have too much zinc in engine oil or motor oil, it could do detrimental. It could do reverse. It could wear out metal parts more than what it's doing. So zinc is very polar. So what that means, it attracts to metal surfaces. So when you have the other chemicals in there, they're all fighting for that real estate, that metal surface. So that's why you can't have a lot of detergents in racing oil, because detergents will do exactly like washing your clothes. It'll actually wash that zinc away and fight for that that metal or that real estate. So, but and there's no common thing. It's just like a chocolate chip cookie I reference all the time. You go down to the grocery store, there's 100 chocolate chip cookies, and like all of our grandma's recipes, they're all different, but it's still a chocolate chip cookie. But there's a little bit of this, a little less of that. It's still some of the similar ingredients, but there's different qualities, and different measurements for it. And that's what makes up, basically the recipe or chemistry.
Then there's another slide down here, Scott. Zinc versus detergent.
Yep. So detergent and dispersant additives in current motor oils are key to keep it clean. So what they call PCMOs, or passenger car motor oils. So it's zinc in oils for current cars is detrimental to catalytic converters, or basically the emissions of the cars. So that's why they have taken and lowered the zinc out of the oil. Plus there's all these other goodies that keep the oil clean and last longer for today. But so basically, to backtrack on what I said in the last slide a minute ago, is the zinc is fighting for that metal surface, and detergent is trying to wipe that away. So in racing oils, it's not, you don't want that. So that's why there's null or nil or very little detergents in racing oil. So,
and then we have balance of zinc versus detergent, Scott.
Yeah, so today's engine oils, that left slide or left picture there, API is American Petroleum Institute, and the ILSAC is the International That's the European spec, basically the same as American. But so you can see where the zinc is lowered in content in the pie chart and detergent is increased. And then on purpose-built motor oils, which is racing oil, high performance oils, classic muscle oil, stuff like that, karting oil, you can see it kind of portrays that the high zinc and less detergents are in those oils.
Gotcha. All right, our next slide was that the anti-wears? I got through all those. Yep. Then we have, let's see here. So I got today's oil versus purpose-built motor oils. That's a slide, Scott.
Yeah, blow that up for me.
Yep.
Yeah, so this just highlights, I'm trying to read that small print. Can you blow it up one more time, Jason? Oh, yeah, this basically just highlights the concern over the lower levels of zinc and phosphorus contents in today's multi-viscosity oil. So they're basically referring to the lowered zinc and phosphorus for passenger car motor oils. And they're still available in like your stores or, you know, like Premier Lubricants or AutoZone. You see a lot of that. But, you know, a lot of the stuff on the road is different than, you know, the track as far as backward compatible. And I think that's just what they were trying to highlight here was basically the point I think they're trying to pull across, or I guess the point is the new engine motor oils, passenger car motor oils have really very low zinc and phosphorus in it. And again, that's basically for catalytic converters because it just ruins them. So that's why they did away with it.
Makes sense.
And zinc, you know, zinc too. A lot of people ask too around the tracks and stuff about zinc. So Castrol was actually the first motor oil company to introduce zinc into motor oil and engine oil. So there's a lot of questioner, you know, thought that either, you know, Kendall did it or, you know, Valvoline or some other one. It was actually Castrol that introduced it to motor oil.
Gotcha. We did that one already. Let me see. I'm just trying to find everything. Detergent, balance. Did we do balance of zinc versus detergent? No, we haven't done this one yet, Scott.
Yeah, that's just a picture represents, you know, the wear. You know, basically zinc in that zinc package basically help with flat tappet and the cams. You know, there's such extreme pressure on those, you know, valve springs and that it put that layer, the zinc package puts that boundary film strength layer on there. So this basically represents what we've been talking about, you know, the balance and you know, versus detergent. You don't get that. So these newer engines and cars on the street, you know, with roller cams and different setups, they don't need that high zinc or that high anti-wear package in there.
Right.
So it just kind of represents that.
And then engines are designed differently, that slide?
Yeah, and that's just, you know, kind of same deal. Like today's engines need less anti-wear, you know, additives. They have a lot of overhead cams. There's no flat tappets or push rods. More need for detergents with the fuels, extended drain intervals, you know, increased detergent and, you know, acid neutralizers. You know, the modern engines are built to modern oil specs and cleaner emissions. And that's what it's all about. Even on the diesel side, they're just trying to always go after the new regulations to clean up, you know, so the oil is always improving and, you know, running cleaner, so to speak.
Let's see here. That was that one. And here is the, so the one question, you know, number one question for racing oil, does it have high zinc? Racers and motorsports enthusiasts reference racing oil with high zinc. I know you wanted to touch on that today.
Yeah, so whenever we get someone approach us about racing oil or ask about racing oil, it's the first question they ask, does it have high zinc? And I always ask them, what do you consider high zinc? So, you know, high zinc, well, all race oil has high zinc, so to speak, or a higher content of zinc. So you could have 1,300 parts per million of zinc all the way up to 3,000 or 3,500 parts per million zinc. It doesn't mean that if you have more zinc that it's a better oil or better performing oil. It depends on application, but a lot of people, kind of reflect it. Racing oil is okay. I didn't blow my engine up and it's got high zinc. And I think there's a big gray area with racing oils or oils in general that, people are misunderstood about it or understand it. That's why a lot of times you always hear people, well, my grandpa used it or my dad used it, generations. And, if you go from something that's pretty good and then you move up and something's better, that becomes a new norm. But there's always something out there that can be better, depending on application. But
and we scrolled down a little bit. Scott, we talked about, it's got a bunch of different things in here. There's street oil versus racing oil.
Yeah, I'm going to blow it up so I can read that. I highlighted a bunch of stuff.
I can, you want me to stop at the highlights, bud?
Yeah, I'm going to pull it up on my computer because my camera's not, and I'm going to look at it so I can read it.
Yeah. Again, thank you for joining us. This is our first ever Tech Talk Tuesday. We're going to do this every 6 o'clock Central Standard Time with Scott Balby, Director of Motorsports with Premier Lubricants, part of Sunoco Racing Oil. They have a partnership with the Beer Money Pulling Team. If you're interested in talking more about this with us, please get a hold of Doug Borth, the General Manager of the Beer Money Pulling Team. Or you can go right to our website and order it and save 15%. Use coupon code BMPT. It's scrolling across the bottom of the show. But the idea is Scott's going to come on here on Tuesday nights. We're going to talk about a couple products and how to make your engine last longer and without breaking the bank, basically. So,
and send us messages on topics maybe that you would want to hear about.
So Mr. Pulltown Nut, one of our followers, says, "Good evening, guys. Here's a question. Is it good or bad to use full synthetic oil in a generator? I've heard different answers, so clarity would help. Thanks." And don't put any Busch Light in your generator, Mr. Pulltown Nut. We know how much you love your Busch. This is William Lumberg, by the way. He is a super fan of Bowling Green, and he's a camper. And I think the most Busch Light
introduced himself to us at Bowling Green.
Yeah, nope. You can absolutely use a full synthetic in the generator. So,
why would he hear something like that? You think, Scott?
Well, I think there's still a lot of old school mindset out there in the field that synthetic oil is not as good as what they portray it to be. Or so let me just explain a little bit. So when the synthetics hit the market back in the early 70s, late 60s, 70s, they didn't have the technology. So a quart of oil, a mineral-based quart of oil is say $1, for example, and then they introduced full synthetics to the market that were $4 a quart. Well, then they had all these problems. They had, oil leakage. People had oil on the ground. They had seals that broke apart. They had, gaskets that would shrink and come apart because they didn't have the technology of the additives back then. In today's world, and we're going fast forward in another 5 or 10 years, probably 90% of the oils that'll be available will be full synthetic because they're that good. So the technology has changed, but I think some of the mindset is that, well, you're just paying a lot of money for nothing. If you go over to compressors where it's very harsh environment and hot, where there's heat. So there's, a few things that kill oil no matter what application. Heat is number one. Heat will break down oil and break additives down. Of course, water is a naughty one too, but if you have water, you got serious problems. But heat is the number one killer of oil. So when you get into full synthetics, the way they're made and the way the chains are, they can handle heat a lot better. So, pick on lawn and garden stuff like weed eaters. You can get a, mineral-based oil for that. You can get a full synthetic to put in there. You can get a, synthetic blend. None of them are the wrong answer. It just depends how often you change your oil. Do you extend it? Do you forget about it? Most oil generally is good in the interim in today's world. It's just, how are you using it? Are you in a hot environment down in Texas? Are you up north? Things of that nature. So,
well, this comment right here, Scottie, in theory, in a mineral-based oil with the molecule sizes being different, that would affect the oil getting past the rings, where a synthetic, where they're uniform, they should make a better seal, correct?
Well, I understand the thought there, but it's so if you get a rating, so your oil is rated. So let's say it's a straight, well, let's say it's a 1030. So it's a 1030 viscosity grade, okay? So you can get 1030 in a synthetic blend and a full synthetic. So it doesn't mean that one's better than the other is going to seal. It still has to have the same spec in the same viscosity grade. It's just the molecule structures make that oil, last longer over, with temperature and things, shearing, if, that's going to get beat up and the molecules are get pounding around. The tighter the molecules are, the better that oil is going to perform in different ranges from cold to hot or heat, and it's going to last longer. So that's the big thing. When you get the molecules in like the synthetic blend, they're all different sizes, they start getting bounced around or broken up and everything. It just doesn't last as long, but it won't have blow by the rings or anything because they are the same, apples to apple viscosity, grade oil, if that makes sense.
Doug, can you read that comment?
He says, thanks for the info. I'll use some full synthetic now. If it says SAE 30W, is it bad to use multi-weight, like i.e. a 5W30 or a 10W30?
Well, so the short answer is always go to the OEM owner's manual for what they call out for that, because they put the oil specs in there based on how that was built. So typically when you see a SAE 30, that's very common for like your lawnmower oils, your 4-stroke lawnmower oils and stuff like that. That was a common oil back in the day for a lot of things, hydraulic oil, engine oils, all that.
I think Mr. Pulltown Nut should go to the Beer Money Pulling Team website, Doug, and order his oil through us and save 15%. Don't you?
That's correct.
We'd like that. We'd like that a lot, William.
So getting back to the zinc or ZDDP, so here's the thing, we want to make this tomato soup and grilled cheese because some of these big words, even the best of the best don't remember this stuff, right? So it's zinc dialky dithophosphate is what ZDDP represents. So everyone shortens it to zinc. So that, that's basically the additives that represent zinc. And again, it's incompatible with catalytic converters and emission controls for today's newer cars and trucks. That's why they took the zinc out of the oils. So, but scrolling down there, Jason, I highlighted it says anti-wear additives come in many different formulations, with each major additive supplier offering multiple versions of differing efficiency and molecular structure. And that's Mr. Baker from Royal Purple. So what he's saying there is like we'll refer to that chocolate chip cookie recipe. So if you take 10 brands of racing oil, you're going to get 10 different chemistries. And we're not saying one or the other is wrong or indifferent. It's just they came up with their formulation that, they introduce a consumer that they think is better than the next. It just like anything in life, campers, boats, cars, trucks, whatever, there's a entry level or a lower, grade or conventional, and then there's good, better, best, and premium. There's the same thing in oil. There's premium oils compared to just conventional oils. So, but the chart from Joe Gibbs Racing is a good illustration. We can get this out to whoever wants a copy. So the modern engine setup is low RPM, low load, less need for anti-wear additives. Like I say, they run overhead cams. There's no flat tappets or push rods. So, that hence is the less need for anti-wear additives. EGR valves are in some of these things, so they need more detergents, extended drain intervals because increased detergents and acid neutralizers. And then the race engine setup is high RPM, typically high load, So you need more friction modifier. They typically run a flat tap of cams and push rods, so they need that zinc anti-wear package. Excuse me. And then the important thing there is the short drain intervals. So without the EGR valves, they don't need the detergents and stuff for that. But the key point there is the short drain intervals. Very few race teams and pullers, run their oil extended. I mean, there's some guys now with the alky, trucks and tractors that try to burn off the alcohol, which that's fine, and extend it. But oil is a very cheap piece of mind for the cost of these engines in today's motorsports. So moving down, I just highlighted, if a lot of people don't know, the API, that's the American Petroleum Institute. They are the ones that have the Society of Automotive Engineers. They make the specs for the automakers. The European equivalent to that is the International Lubricant Standardization and Approval Committee. That's the ILSAC. They do that for the European auto industry. The next little box here put in there is in another Joe Gibbs, because Lake Speed Jr. Did a lot of this stuff back in the day. Lake Speed's one of the best in the business with oil, and he's over to Total Seal now, so we got to give kudos to Lake. He's awesome with lubricants and knowledge. But this basically represents, the zinc package as film strength, and boundary lubricants. As load increases in temperature, it kind of reflects that. Any questions on the zinc or anything, or we're good?
We haven't. I don't think we've got any more.
I haven't seen more questions. Nope.
So the important part about the zinc that's out of that little.
Hold on. I'll order a beer money if every $100 spent I get it. Yes, Mr. Fulltown. Now.
Absolutely.
Here are the stickers right here, buddy. We will hook you up. Free stickers. Doug, we should do that anyway, honestly.
Right.
Let's get some stickers, beer money stickers with every order.
I'll take a couple.
So, is too much zinc bad?
Too much zinc can be bad because it's an anti-wear. I mean, that's why you have to have these other additives in there, because zinc alone would just wear out metal. So I'm not saying that, these guys that put these zinc add packs in and everything, but it's just like going to a party and you have 3 different people making your Jack and Coke. It's not going to be the same. So when you talk about oil, when you talk about the major brands, minor brands, the mom and pop blenders and different competitors, is consistency. It's very consistent where the base oils come from, very consistent where the additives come from, and then the blending process. And then, of course, quality control is crucial, like the beginning of the run, middle of the run, and then the last, container of the run. They do lab analysis right internally before those products get approved for, to be shipped. So moving along there. So the one notable I put, as load increases, the zinc provides the boundary lubricant. So that's the key point out of that. And then by itself, the element zinc provides absolutely no benefit in engine oil. So I kind of answered that question, Jason, a minute ago.
Yeah.
So, other than that, I mean, there's hundreds of different, ZDDP or zinc packages at every level and quality of, performance from, oil manufacturer to oil manufacturer. So, one thing too, it's important to know is when there's like additives and then add packs or additive packages. So there's some, brands that get their additives already blended and they get them in a drum or a tote or bulk. Most of the higher end manufacturers will get their additives individually, just like they're going to make a cake, and then they'll do the proportions or the make the recipe on that. So that's the difference between buying additives and an additive package for the blender formula, formulators.
Yep. Hey Scott, so I need to wrap this up. Our first hour has gone pretty strong here. I got to do another show at 7. So like Doug said earlier, we want this to be educational for everybody. We're not trying to sell something, we're trying to provide value. And I really, really mean that. So if you have topics, Scott is legit like passionate about this and knows what he's talking about. So we're gonna throw one more question up there, Scott, and then I'm gonna wrap it up here, okay? Buddy?
Okay.
Does extended life oil filter really safe to use? Example, if the oil says should be changed 5,000 miles with a regular filter and the extended says it can go to 15, should it really go to 15K city highway mix?
So it's broken up a little bit. You're saying the filter or the oil?
Filter. Is he referring to a big truck? I know that's a thing on road trucks. You know, like semis, they'll do extended. They'll put a secondary bypass filter on. You know, where they only change that filter out and leave the oil go for 40,000 miles or whatnot.
Yeah, so it depends the application. So, like, if it's a diesel and we need to know a little bit more information. But so if you have dump trucks or garbage truck school buses that are doing short runs, you know, in the cities or stop and go, sit and idle. So in diesel, idle kills diesel engine oil. It's the number one thing that'll kill diesel engine oil. You know, those guys should do oil drain intervals, you know, probably no more than 15,000 miles. And maybe the filter in between that, if it's a harsh, you know, like your landfill or, you know, dump trucks back in pits and everything. But, you know, I have over the road trucks that I have at 75,000 mile oil drain intervals. So let me say that again. Over the road trucks, 75,000 mile oil drain intervals, but they are doing filter changes in between that at sporadic times. But that's how good some of the new quality oils are. And diesel is the most harsh, robust of anything that beats oil up. You know, on the road, you know, off-road, pulling, you know, especially in the pulling truck and tractor pulling world. I mean, they just beat the hell out of the oil. So, but if we can get some more information, anybody, just a little more detail, you know.
Yeah, he said not heavy duty daily drivers, not
gas
cars and trucks. Yep.
It's gas.
Yes.
And so, someone said the oil can go 15,000 miles.
That's what he's asking. An extended use. Yes.
Yeah, I would have to look at that, the brand. So I will answer that if you guys get me the information. Okay. And that's the thing. I'll.
What are we going to talk about next week, Scottie?
So if anyone wants to pick a subject, you know, they could do that, or we'll kind of slim this down a little bit so it's a little shorter written. I do apologize tonight for this.
No, it's our first one. Don't feel bad. It's all good.
Yeah. So, but we want to do. We could, some topics we could do is either starting fluid. You know, that's a big thing in the pulling world. We can do diesel engine oil and TBN, total base number, and your TAN, your total acid number. Explain a little bit about how diesel oil gets acidic quickly and why and what that does. So we have a lot of topics we can talk about.
Let's pick that for next week's topic.
Okay. Yep. We'll do the diesel engine oil. We'll pick that apart a little bit.
Sounds like
Joey Z says, I came in a little late, but I thought it was great. Hey, I like how you're riding there, Joey Z. He's watching on YouTube. But every Tuesday night, 6 o'clock Central, 7 o'clock Eastern, we're going to do Tech Talk with Director of Motorsports Scott Balby from Premier Lubricants with Sunoco Racing Oil. So thank you for watching tonight. I'm going to switch over. I got Outlawed live starting here in a few minutes. We'll be live on Facebook and YouTube again. Doug, thank you for your time. Scott, thank you for your time. You guys have a good night.
See everybody next week.